Julian, and I'm the director for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. I am so excited to have you with us today for the 19th anniversary of the Forum for Excellence. We are so excited to be here virtually with all of you, and we are really happy to have you with us. A couple of logistical items as we begin today. We want you all to participate and engage, and we know that we're not in person, but we have planned a very engaging, interactive, and exciting conference for you. And over the next 2 days, we do encourage you to engage with our presenters, engage with our panelists, and really be a part of the conference. You'll find everything you need for engagement on the Whova app, and we will be going into that in more detail as we wrap up this morning. As for this session this morning, we do invite you to post any questions or comments into the chat. All of our panelists will be able to see the chat box there. And I wanted to let you know that this conference is brought to you by the Illinois Community College Board and is planned in coordination between the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support and our partners at the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center in SIUE. So with that, I'm going to hand the floor over to Dr. Lorenzo Lopez, and he is our the Illinois Community College Board Chair. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Amy. I'd like to welcome everyone to the annual ICCB Forum for Excellence. Although it would certainly be a pleasure to see all of you in person, our second all-virtual conference continues to offer unprecedented access to high-quality professional development and networking opportunities to administrators and instructors alike. We recognize these are not normal times, and each of us, as we teach and lead our education systems during this pandemic, do so carrying a heavy burden of responsibility and empathy. But despite the insurmountable challenges brought on by COVID-19 and its impact on education, our Illinois Community College system and other providers have remained resolute to providing our students with unparalleled educational opportunities. So we thank you for your unwavering dedication to career, technical, and adult education. Furthermore, this year's forum theme, Through the Equity Lens, reiterates the board's intentionality and dedication to advancing educational equity, which is one of the board's primary goals. Both adult education and CTE are essential levers for breaking down inequities in our higher education system. These programs are instrumental in ensuring equitable access to learning opportunities, serving as a bridge to individual empowerment and economic mobility, supporting local communities, and fostering innovation. Career, technical, and adult education will be instrumental in Illinois' recovery efforts from the COVID-19 pandemic. So we thank you for your hard work in continuing to educate our students virtually, hybrid, or in person during these stressful times. I'd like to finish by thanking the ICCB staff who have remained steadfast in their commitment to the system, the board's goals, and to the many projects that contribute to student success. I look forward as you to the variety of breakout sessions and our keynote speakers, Dr. Eakins, who will lead dynamic discussions on equity, diversity, and inclusion in education. We're also excited to have Jennifer Mishry from the U.S. Department of Education speak to us about the national landscape and policies that will impact the future of adult education and career and technical education. And I'll be leading a session this morning with the agency's Deputy Director for Academic Affairs, Marcus Brown, on connecting the dots among the state's various legislative efforts to increase completion rates. So I want to thank you, encourage you to enjoy the conference, and stay well. At this point, I'd like to introduce the Deputy Executive Director of ICCB, Jennifer Foster. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Lopez, and thank you for your comments, as well as thank you so much for your leadership of the ICCB. And good morning to all of you. And thank you so much for your participation this year, and welcome to this year's conference. Dr. Durham was supposed to be here to give you opening comments, but he regrets that he can't be here with you this morning. He was called to Chicago for a meeting. While we certainly, as Dr. Lopez has said, hope to see you in person, we wanted to make certain that we kept everyone safe during these times. COVID has presented many challenges for us all, but we are working our way through and learning different ways to adapt to our new normal. Thank you to ICSPS and SIPDC and all of the ICCB staff that were involved in putting together this wonderful conference. We are very pleased with all of the efforts that have been put into this, and we are very pleased with your efforts over the last year in keeping instruction moving forward as we navigate these unprecedented times. And thank you so much for your services to the students that you serve. This shows your commitment to education and workforce and the preparation of students for career, technical, and adult education students throughout the state. This year's theme, Through the Equity Lens, supports the ICCB's commitment to advancing equity throughout our state. In these times, this commitment has become so important as the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects continue to impact all of our communities, especially the communities of color, low-income populations, and others who face barriers to education and workforce participation. Despite the challenge that COVID has presented, all of our institutions and programs across the state have stepped up to the challenge to meet their students' needs. Reducing the barriers for students enables them to be successful. Examining equity gaps that exist within each of our communities to determine what is needed is very important. This year's conference reflects the many innovative ways in which colleges and adult education providers have kept students engaged throughout these times, always keeping in mind equity. The ICCB is engaged in many projects throughout the state that are geared towards ensuring equity for our students. Some of these projects include the Workforce Equity Initiative, Adult Education and CTE Integrated Education and Training Programs, the apprenticeship programs, our CAPIT program through the Department of Labor grant, our transitional instructional models, learning renewal, career and technical education equity-driven initiatives, innovative bridge and transition programs, the comprehensive needs assessment, the Illinois post-secondary profile, outreach and marketing efforts that are going on throughout our states, and many, many other projects and initiatives that show our commitment to equity. This is the commitment of the system in making certain that there are programs and services that help all students to be successful. This conference will provide a better understanding of most of these initiatives, the sharing of information, but amongst each one of our educators is key to our success and the success of our students. Lastly, I want to recognize the efforts of our adult education system as we celebrate National Adult Education Week. The ICCB would like to thank all adult educators and the 74 programs throughout the state that strive daily to prepare individuals for the world of work and their transition to employment and additional training, as well as post-secondary education. On behalf of our board, Dr. Brian Durham and the staff of the ICCB, we thank you for your presence and participation in the Forum for Excellence, 19 years in the making, as we strive for excellence as a system. As you move about the day, keep in mind equity and the services that we provide to all of our students. Thank you and have a great conference. Now I am going to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning, Dr. Sheldon L. Eakins. Dr. Eakins is the founder of the Leading Equity Center and host of the leading equity podcast. With over 11 years in education, he has served as a teacher, principal, and director of special education. Join me in welcoming Dr. Eakins. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the introduction. I appreciate that. And I am really excited. I wish I could have been there live. I am not too far though. I'm in actually I was in Chicago, but I'm actually in Indiana right now, Indianapolis. So visiting my parents. So that's always fun to do so. So I'm very excited to be able to present to you right now. Normally I live in Idaho. So I do want to bring you greetings from Pocatello, Idaho, small town where Idaho State University is. I'm representing the 0.8, that's right, I said 0.8% of Black people in the entire state of Idaho, which is me and my brother and maybe a couple other people, and that's about it. So it's always great to be able to interact. So I wish I could have been there live. However, here we are. I'm going to share my screen because I want to jump into today's keynote address. I'm really excited. I'm always excited to be able to present. So give me a second. We're going to get that loaded up. All right. I believe that's coming in. Now I can also, so I like to do virtual keynotes because one of the things about virtual keynotes, especially with Zoom, you have the opportunity to look at the chat. And so I see some chats coming in. I see Yolanda used to, in Boise. Okay, so great. So now we got 0.5. Good. So I love the representation. So feel free to drop your chat if you have questions or any of those things. I'll try to kind of keep my eye on it a little bit and see if I can kind of weave some of what I'm asking or talking about into the keynote address today. So I don't want to just have to preach to you for a whole hour, but I do like the interaction. So feel free to drop your comments in as you think about them. So today we're talking about cultivating an anti-racist environment. And we hear the term anti-racist a lot, and we've been hearing it a lot, especially since, I would probably say, since around when George Floyd was murdered. And so those conversations continue to happen. And I'm going to share with you some stories from my personal life, kind of take a little bit through my journey, and then I'll share a little vulnerable moments as well. You know, people come to me and they say, "Well, Dr. Eakins, we consider you the equity expert," and I say, "You know what? I don't consider myself an expert. I just try to be one chapter ahead. That's basically my mantra. You know, we're all on a journey. There's no end. There is no, well, you have arrived. You are officially equity, you're officially anti-racist, or whatever it is. It's something that we work towards. And so whatever position you're in, whatever experiences you had personally, or if you're working towards, again, you're just getting started and just assuming that you're visiting or you're attending this session, I know that you have equity in your mind. It's at the forefront. But again, just keep in mind, it is a journey. It is an area that I am still working on to this day. Okay. So I don't think that I have arrived. It's just something that we, again, strive towards. Okay. So I want to start off by discussing with you, or asking you a question rather. Have you ever been uncomfortable? Have you ever been uncomfortable? I want you to think about that question. And yes, I'm sure we've all been uncomfortable at some point in our lives. We've been embarrassed and things like that. But I'm sharing a story with you because I really want you to think about where I'm going from there. Because when I got my doctorate, I figure, you go get your Ph.D. and you're supposed to go into higher education. That's the next thing. You got to be a professor or something like that. Right. So started putting in applications and started applying all over the place. And literally, I guess it doesn't matter. I'm not afraid to apply in certain places because shoot, I live in Idaho now. You know, I got a job at ISU. And so, or Idaho State, let me clarify. So, I got a job interview before that job. I got a job interview in actually Chicago area. And when I went to this job interview, I was excited. I just got a brand new suit because I was doing my interview tour, right? Doing that whole thing. And so I arrived to the campus early. I would say I got there about 9. Let's see. Let's say the interview started at 10. I got there about 9 o'clock. So it was about an hour early. I was trying to get myself prepared. I just kind of make sure I knew exactly where to go, the whole thing. So I said, you know what? I have this thing where anytime I have to do something important, I need to use the bathroom before I do that. Right. Just kind of just gets me into the right mindset. And so I went into the bathroom and finished taking care of my business. And I went to zip up my pants and the zipper broke. I'm sitting there trying to pull up my zipper and it's stuck. And I don't know what to do because my interview is done. Yes. So my interview is about to start in like 5 minutes. And I am like, what do I do? Right? Because you're standing there. So I button up, I pull my pants all the way up. I'm talking about almost up to my armpits. And I am just trying to zip it up. And I'm just trying to figure out what to do. I have an interview in 5 minutes. And I button up I had a 2-button suit. So I button up both buttons. I pull my pants all the way up. And I said, okay, this is that moment. I could choose to walk out the door and just never look back and just forget this interview because I'm exposed. Or I can try to go into this interview and do my thing. But best believe I was uncomfortable. So I just happened to have my notepad with me because I like to take notes, try to look prepared. I had questions all ready to go. And so I put my notepad right in front of myself. I walk into the room, shaking everybody's hands, and I'm just awkward. Luckily, the interview, which had about 10 people in the interview, by the way, luckily we had to sit down. So I sat down, I did my whole thing. But the whole time that I was in there and they're, doing their questions and I'm responding, and I'm sharing examples of why I'm the best candidate. The whole time I was physically there, but I wasn't there mentally. Because why? I was very, very uncomfortable. Whole time. I hope they don't see me. Sure enough, they said, yep, worrying about the zipper. Sure enough, I stand up. And they want to give me a tour of the college campus. What do I say? Okay. Now, the college campus tour is literally, I had to walk through the entire campus. They introduced me to student activities. They introduced me to administrators. They introduced me to everybody. The whole time I'm walking around and I'm just, again, uncomfortable. I got my notepad in front of me. I'm walking like a penguin. And I am trying to keep my pants up. I'm constantly saying, hey, can I go to the bathroom real quick? I'll be right back. That was about, I would say it was about an hour long, maybe 2 hours worth of time that I spent on that campus from the time from the interview starting until the end. And again, best believe, if you're wondering, did he get the job? No, I didn't get the job. They probably were thinking like this dude was the weirdest guy we've ever seen. He always had his hand in front of himself and he just seemed very uncomfortable. He was sweating and we didn't know what was wrong. We definitely wouldn't hire him. Now, going back to my original question, have you ever been uncomfortable? Yes, that was one example of me being uncomfortable. You know what? When we get uncomfortable, what do we have to do? We still had to keep it all together, right? You might be in a leadership position. You might be a student. You might be an individual who is working towards something. And you get put into an awkward situation. You get put into a situation that you weren't prepared for, right? It wouldn't be uncomfortable if we knew it was coming, right? That's the thing about our comfort level. Is things catch us off guard. We're not ready for it. Yet, depending on what our position is, depending on where we're at, we have to stick in there and fight through it. Right? We're supposed to. So here's a question I get sometimes. People will say, well, okay, all right. I hear you, Sheldon. Appreciate your story about your zipper. That's funny. Ha, ha, ha. You made it through, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but guess what? I'm in a position where I want to advocate for my students, or I want to advocate for my staff. How do I do that if it's my supervisor that I need to talk to? Or maybe it's my best friend, someone that I'm close to, or there's a relationship dynamic there that I need to address, and I want to talk to them, how do I address these type of situations? If I see, okay, you're telling me, if we see something that makes us uncomfortable, maybe it's talking about race, maybe it's talking about something that we cannot personally identify with. We want to have that conversation, but it's an uncomfortable conversation. How do I do that? Years ago, so I finally get this job, right? So I'm in Idaho. I got the fortunate opportunity, and we might have some TRIO representatives out there in the audience. Shout it out if you're familiar with TRIO. But I got a job working at Idaho State University, working for TRIO. Basically, is a college access program. So what we did was we would support students who would be the first ones in their family to pursue a 4-year degree, or they were coming from a limited income background. So the challenge that I had was I served a high school that was on the Native American reservation. Okay, every week I would show up to school and I would work with the kids, and the program, we would introduce them to colleges, help them with their scholarship and get them into careers, everything. And sometimes we would even work with some adult learners as well, right? Some maybe folks that they decided to go to college, or they dropped out, or they, for whatever reason, they are coming back in, right? I loved the job because I worked with 100% Native American kids, and I got to show up every week to support them and their pursuit of a college degree. The challenge that I had was that this school was one school of about 10 other schools within the grant, but they had the highest need. When we think about what the word equity means versus what the word equality means, see, equality is giving everybody the same thing. And that's what we did. We went around and we would say, hey, let's take this college tour. We're going to take him on 4 different colleges over 2 days, 100 kids. Load them up onto 2 buses, take them around the college campuses, introduce them to college attendance. We do admissions. We give them an opportunity to eat the food, whether if it's lunch or dinner, we give them that experience. So we gave everybody that same experience. But keep in mind, I live where? I live in Idaho. So what does that mean? Every trip that we took, we visited a predominantly white institution. We had folks in our staff that were scratching their heads. For some reason, we can't seem to get the Native American kids to show up on the bus. I would personally get them registered. I get them signed up, permission slips in. I was calling them up the morning of, the day before, calling parents. Hey, the trip's tomorrow. And for some reason, the folks couldn't figure it out. Kids wouldn't show up. Okay. So what did I tell my supervisor? I said, listen, we have a problem here. We have a group of kids from the reservation who have the highest need. Their statistics show that they actually need the most support when it comes to college access. That's what the data says. However, every college tour we take, we're visiting predominantly white schools, and we're trying to figure out, well, why aren't they showing up on the bus? Why aren't they going on these trips? The Native Americans. And I told my supervisor, I said, this is not right, because you're the first one that's telling me to go to the reservation, go get that letter of support, so we can have them in a grant to make sure that we can get the grant, because it makes our stats look good for the grant overall. I said, we need to make sure that we're being more intentional with our approach to college access for our kids on the res. So I told my supervisor, we're doing a college tour that's indigenous. We're going to take a tribal college tour. Keep in mind, in the state of Idaho, there are absolutely no tribal colleges. What does that mean? We got to travel out of state. My supervisor said, okay, Sheldon, I see what you're saying, and I agree. So, we went to Montana. You know where we went? We went to South Dakota. Anybody know what's in South Dakota? If you know what's in South Dakota, put that in the chat box. What's in South Dakota? Because that's where I took them. And we stopped at various colleges on the way. Somebody said the mountains, Mount Rushmore. Yeah, Mount Rushmore's there. I saw it in there. Crazy Horse Memorial. I took them to the Crazy Horse Memorial. I enjoyed it. The kids enjoyed it. Took 10 kids, took one big old van, loaded everybody up, 11th and 12th graders, took them we stopped at Wind River Reservation. We went to Oglala Lakota Reservation. We went to tribal colleges. We went to the Crazy Horse Memorial. Because again, I wanted to be intentional with my approach to a college tour. The Black Hills. There you go. Pine Ridge. And so you could imagine the kids' faces as I watched the students. They were participating this time. So every now and then I would get at least one child, maybe sometimes one or two students will show up, best friends will show up on the trip. They weren't engaged in the college tours before, but I watched the kids interact with each other. I watched the kids interact with the faculty as they watched people that looked like them. College degrees, doctorates, indigenous community, doing well. We had several kids going off to college to one of those schools the year after they graduated. Now, what I thought was funny, so Mount Rushmore's out there. It's about 20 minutes drive from Crazy Horse. I asked the kid, I said, okay, kids, this is the end of the trip. Y'all want to go over to see Mount Rushmore? You know what they said to me? They said, those aren't our presidents. I said, well, I hear you on that. You know what? To be honest, some of those presidents on there had slaves. I don't need to go over there either. So we just drove by Mount Rushmore and some of the kids took pictures. But again, I wanted to make sure that the trip that was given to them, again, we're the first ones to go to the reservation, go grab the letter of support so we could put it into our grants. We could have the kids in our grant, but then we weren't doing anything specific to them. We were giving the equality. Oh, we just have one trip coming up next month. We're going to 4 colleges, but they're all white colleges. And you got indigenous kids, and we can't figure out, well, what's going on? Why aren't they showing up? Here's a question I want you to ask yourself. Because I challenged my supervisor, and I love my former supervisor, and she was very open to having these kind of conversations. But the question I want to ask you, have I set up an environment in which my staff feel comfortable speaking up and addressing their concerns? If you're in a supervisory role, and I went to my boss and I told my boss, listen, what we're doing is not right. We're doing our kids a disservice. We have a smaller population of kids. I think I had maybe 40 kids at that school compared to a grant that housed 1,500 students. So that 40 kids out of that 1,500 students, some people will tell me, well, we only had a handful of kids of color. So we just assumed that we didn't need to do it. You know what my response is? Well, what's the quota? What's the limit? Because to me, it doesn't matter whether you have one student or if you got 100 students, whether your percentage is 0.8 or your percentage is 80%. If we're saying that we're going to be equitable in our approach to education, doesn't matter how many of one group or identity that we have. That shouldn't be our focus. We should be focused on ensuring that we're meeting the individual needs of our kids. So I'm glad that my supervisor was open enough to have that conversation. But think about those individuals who might, let's say I wasn't at that school and there was another individual that was serving the school. would they be comfortable with speaking up to let their supervisor know, hey, we're not doing enough for our kids. There's a group of students that aren't getting the support that they need. And they, again, arguably have the most need. So again, have you created that environment as a leader? Have you set it up so that you have that open door, right? Your staff can approach you and they can be candid with you. Can I have a conversation, let you know what's on my mind? Are you open and receptive to feedback? Sometimes as leaders, we don't like to hear what we'll say, oh, come to me anytime. Oh yeah, just call me or text anytime. So when that day comes, when that text comes in, that call comes in, are you really open and receptive to the feedback, the questions, to be challenged in your approach? Something to think about. Now, you might have heard the term anti-racist. Okay. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean to be anti-racist? Now, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi says there's two different things, right? There's racist and then there's anti-racist. One who's racist is supporting a racist policy through their actions or inaction or expressing a racist idea. That's what Kendi says, right? He says that the opposite, or the other side rather, is one who's supporting a policy, anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. Question sometimes comes up, well, you know what? That wasn't me back in January 2021. That wasn't me on the Capitol building. That wasn't me with the tiki torches. That wasn't me wearing a white robe, burning crosses. I can't be racist. That's not me. I don't do those things. One of the things that really made me think when I read the book, How to Be Anti-Racist, was Kendi says the opposite of racist isn't not racist. The true opposite of racist is anti-racist. Someone put it in there, Nancy. Silence only benefits the oppressor. So when you were participating in a group discussion, maybe it was a circle of you, maybe 4 or 5 people, someone brings up a joke. It's a racial joke. They tell the joke and you didn't laugh. So I didn't participate because I didn't laugh. It was funny, but I didn't laugh at it. And I always respond with, well, what did you do? Did you walk away? Did you say stop? How did you address that? So someone tells a joke or says a comment, makes a comment that you know is racist or discriminatory towards someone else or a certain group or certain people, prejudice. You didn't say anything about it. So you can't be neutral. Are you actively working towards dismantling systems of oppression? Are you actively working towards eradicating injustice? Or are we just saying, well, I didn't participate. I didn't say the joke. I didn't say it. I didn't do it. Everybody else did. Those people were doing those things. I didn't agree with it. I just didn't say anything about it. That's the question that I have. Now, I'll be honest with you. I wish I could just stand up here and talk to you as if I am perfect, as if I've never missed an opportunity myself. You know, the thing about being on the equity journey is you're learning as you go. I've definitely missed opportunities. If I had more time, I would share a bunch of stories about missed opportunities. It happens, right? I wasn't always this vocal. You know what? Honestly, and maybe this is an excuse, and it shouldn't be an excuse, but I'll be honest. I'll be vulnerable for just a moment. Okay? I didn't always have the language to use. I didn't know what to say. I would see some stuff happen. I would hear something happen. I wouldn't know what to say. I wouldn't know how to call it out. What is that? I know it's wrong, but I don't have the textbook answer as to the definition, maybe. Is that a microaggression? Is that being prejudiced? Is that being racist? I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure. Should I say minority? Should I say person of color? Should I say BIPOC, Black Indigenous person of color? I didn't have that language. I didn't have the terminology. I just knew it was wrong. I just didn't know what to say or how to address it. And then again, talking about if it was a supervisor, if it was a very close friend, parent, relative, how do I address this? I was a school principal years ago. Shout out to anybody that's been a school principal, by the way. Has its perks, but then it also is a lot of work. Just imagine for one moment, just put yourself in my lens. And again, I'm not making any excuses. Okay, I'm not making any excuses. I'm just going to share a vulnerable moment for just a moment. Hang with me. I was a school principal in Oregon. School that I was serving, all white. Staff, I would say 90% white. There's a few folks of color. My staff was white. Most of the kids were white. I'm a Black man in Oregon. I'm the school principal. This was a private school, by the way. Let's see, we went K. It was K to 10. It was weird. They went to 10th grade. I don't know what that was about. Anyway, went to 10th grade. One day, summer happens, and I'm doing my thing. I'm recruiting kids because it's a private school. We got to get kids to enroll in our school. I have a Black family show up. They see a Black principal. We're gonna put our kid in your school. Their son was in kindergarten. We're gonna put our son in your school because we want our son to see another Black man in a leadership role. So now I'm excited because one, I just increased the diversity in our school, right? One, and then there's a Black family, right? It's if you ever been in a situation, some of y'all might be able to relate. If you've been in a situation where you're the only person in your space and you got to navigate that every day, it's nice to see a friendly face or familiar face. I'll put it that way. Halfway through the school year, it's going well. Kids, I'm checking in on the boy every now and then, waving at him, say hello, trying to talk to him, make sure he's okay. Because I'm an adult and I'm dealing with this. I don't know what a 6-year-old got to deal with it too, right? One day, his teacher comes up to me and says, one of the students has been making fun of the boy, calling him chocolate boy. Everywhere he goes, chocolate boy. And it's an older kid. He's like 2nd grade. Bullying the kid. I'll be honest. I didn't know what to do. Part of me is angry as a Black man hearing that this 1st grade or kindergartner is being called chocolate boy. And again, he's the only one that looks like himself besides myself. So now it makes me think, well, what does this boy think about me? Is he calling me chocolate principal? I don't know. Okay. So I don't know what to do. Because do I come at it too hard? Am I showing too much bias, if you will? Because if I suspend him for life or something, because that's what I wanted to do. So I was told this on a Friday. I didn't want to react. Again, there's politics when you're in leadership positions. Again, I'm the only Black staff. I'm the principal, and I'm dealing with a racial issue. I've never experienced this before. Didn't know what to do. So I sat there, spent the whole weekend. I got a call Monday morning from the boy's parent. We just were told by my son, my son just told us that he's been called chocolate boy. And again, he's in kindergarten, so he didn't even know, he didn't know anything about it. They just called me chocolate boy. He didn't even have an idea that this could be wrong. So he's just talking to them in just like a conversation. And they're alarmed. His parents are alarmed. What's going on? You know what they said to me? I took this like it hurt. We thought we brought him here for a reason. We thought that you being the principal would be able to protect my son. Things can happen, but we could have at least appreciated a call from you. I fumbled around. I stumbled with my response to this family because I felt bad and they were right. And I could think about it if it was my son and that happened to my son and I had a black principal and the black principal didn't do anything. So I could relate. I could empathize with him. I knew I was wrong. I should have handled it. I should have addressed it right then and there. Should have contacted the parent, let them know, hey, your son has been teased in school. I'm going to take care of it. That's all I needed to hear. I didn't know what to do. No excuse. Be honest. This is what happened. So the next day, so now we're like Tuesday or something at this point. And I finally talked to I talked to the student, the boy that was being called chocolate boy. So I talked to the black kid. And I told him, this is wrong. Don't allow kids to talk to you this way. Then I talked to the other student, the one that was teasing him. I think he was in second grade. I saw it in the comment. Because always the question is, well, where did they learn this, right? Where did they hear this? Because when you talk to parents, oh, I don't know how Johnny found out. We don't talk like this at home. I don't know. I sound like Mickey Mouse for some reason. I don't know. But the point is, when you talk to the parents always, they're dumbfounded. They never know where the stuff comes from. Right? They never know where it comes from. But I talked to the boy and I said, what if everybody looked like you? Like literally just twins looked like you. What would be your thought if everybody would look like you in the world? He said, the world would be boring. And I said, can you appreciate the fact that folks look different? Folks have their own thoughts. People have long hair. People have short hair. People have dark skin. People have light skin. We're all different. Can you appreciate the fact that we have these differences and why that's so important? Again, if you thought about what it could be like, what the world would be like if everybody literally looked exactly like you. And the thing I told him, I said, never, ever, ever tease a child. First of all, we shouldn't be teasing a child, but definitely don't tease a child under circumstances that they cannot change. Whether they're disabled, whether they're a person of color, we have differences and we embrace those differences. The kid ended up writing a letter of apology to the student. Not sure what happened after that as far as the school year. And the kids, the parents didn't bring the child back. The black boy, he didn't come back the next year. This happened about 8 years ago. I still think about that. This was before I spoke up to my supervisor and let my supervisor know that we need to take more intentional trips for our Indigenous kids. I wasn't always as vocal, didn't always know what to say or do. I'm very fortunate that I have a podcast and I've learned a lot. I've read a lot of books, but I didn't know what to do. Here's some questions I want you to ask. If someone asks my students or staff about what they liked best about me Would they respond with comments centered around my values of equity and inclusivity? Have I missed opportunities to speak up about injustices? And what could I do to prepare to respond if inequities take place? This is one of the things I tell people. People tell me about missed opportunities. Oh man, what should I have done in that situation? What should I have said? I said, don't beat yourself up. Take it as a lesson learned. Don't. I'm giving you this advice, but I'm literally telling you a story that happened about 8 years ago. Okay, but my point is, try not to beat yourself up. Learn from that experience. So what did I take from that? I said, I'll never let another child get disrespected, and I'm in a position of influence and a position of power, and I have a level of authority to address it. I'm going to address it immediately, even if it takes me some time to think about it. I'm going to at least reach out to the parent, family member, whoever is involved, and I'll say, I'm not going to handle this right now, but it will be taken care of. I am aware of the situation. I'm not going to sit around waiting a whole weekend because I'm off trying to figure out what to do. I'm going to let folks know, listen, I don't have a decision right now, but it will be addressed. Sometimes we are in a position where we can actually just take care of it right then and there, and that's fine. But this is something I didn't address it immediately. And like I said, I let this family down. So let's talk about it. Taking an anti-racist stance. You know, a lot of times we'll hear the term microaggression. You might have heard this term before, those everyday slights, those small slights, indignities that are thrown at someone, that trigger someone, often from well-intentioned individuals. Now, usually with the term microaggressions, that individual is not aware, or the perpetrator is not aware of their actions. That's what we're supposed to assume. I read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, he mentioned he doesn't agree with the term microaggressions anymore, just aggressions. And I agree with that. I live in Idaho. I could tell you some stories. I remember working with Trio. I used to visit a school. I'm not going to say where it was. I'm not going to say where it was, but I used to visit a school. Literally every time I went to this school, I came back with a story to tell. I always had something to say. Oh yeah. I remember. I'll tell you a story real quick, because this is going to lead into my next slide. So this is relevant, but I just thought about this. So I show up to the school, and so Trio is a college access program. We're usually set up somewhere in the high school or middle school, and so I had staff. So one of my staff members, I went to go visit him as a supervisor. So I went up, and we're stationed in the library. This is where we were. And I show up to the school, show up in the library, and I'm sitting there. And as I am sitting there in the library, my friend, he says, I gotta go to the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom. So I'm just sitting there, minding my own business. And from a corner, I hear, he looks like Ben Carson. I looked around because I didn't see Ben Carson anywhere. He said, he looks just like Ben Carson. And as I looked around, I could see the librarian from across the room talking to a student, looking right at me, pointing at me, and telling the student he looks like Ben Carson. I get upset. And you should see the student, by the way. The student was sitting there she was like in horror, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. So I looked across the room and I said, we don't all look alike. The woman that's saying this is she's stunned now. And you know, you know what she said? I wish I could make this up. I wish I could make this up. She said, we just watched Gifted Hands, so it's all good. So I'm like, okay. This woman said, we just watched Gifted Hands, so it's okay for me to say that you look like Ben Carson. You know what I said to her? I said, well, you look like Barbara Bush. I said, you look like, what's the one? Betty White. I said, you look, I probably named at least 3 or 4 older white women that I could think of off the top of my head. I said, you look like them. It's okay. I just saw Golden Girls. It's okay. I was mad. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then I said, you know what? I said, okay, hold on. I'm a visitor. I'm a guest. My staff works here. He's got to be here all the time. I should probably stop. So I let it go. Right? I ended it there. But the tension was there. The tension. This, I don't know how I got onto the story. It's on topic. That's what it was. It ties into my next slide. Right. So the point that I'm trying to make, when we talk about, my point that I was trying to make is aggression. That's what I was on. All right, aggressions. So the thing about aggressions, right? And I dropped the micro, right? Because at the point of this is, you say that it's supposed to be best intentions. This woman's telling me that it's okay because she just watched Gifted Hands. So and it's okay for her to say I don't look like Ben Carson, by the way, but she's saying I look like Ben Carson. And going back to the definition, everyday slice of trigger. So I was clearly triggered. I was clearly upset. I didn't like that, right? Because we don't all look alike. Sometimes people tell me I look like Kevin Hart. I said, I don't look like Kevin Hart, right? Just because I like to make jokes doesn't make me Kevin Hart. And so when we think about what does that mean to the person who is receiving this trigger, who is receiving this message, right? How they are feeling. And then if I respond wrong, so some people might say, oh, Sheldon, you were wrong because you said she looked like Betty White and said you just watched Golden Girls. So people might jump on me for that, right? However, she started it. She started it, right? So why can't I match the intensity? So let's just say that you are an individual and you say, you know what, I want to address a trigger. I want to address an aggression that is thrown at me, but you know what, that's a little bit more, I'm not comfortable with calling someone out in that manner. I'm not there yet. You know, I'm just getting started on my equity journey. I'm not there yet. Okay. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you 3 more subtle ways rather, that you can address aggressions. Maybe you don't have to be at the same level at me. Again, I've been doing this for a while, right? So, and I'm just kind of at that place, you know, I'm not old, but I'm older in life. I've had enough experiences. I live in Idaho enough to where you just get to that place. You're like, you know what? I don't even care no more. And so that's just me. But let's just say you want to start a little bit. Can you give me baby steps? I want to get the baby steps. I'm going to give you the baby steps version. But feel free, by the way, to respond the way you need to respond. Okay. But if you lose a job or whatever, that's don't say Sheldon told me to do that. Okay. Okay. So one second, can I also get some more or less subtle ways? Asking for friends. Okay. I'm gonna give you subtle stuff. Okay. I'm gonna give you some subtle stuff. All right. Because I don't want to just sit here and preach to you and not give you anything. You just leave today's session. You're like, oh man, this man just preached for an hour and didn't even give me anything. All right. So I'm gonna give you some subtle stuff. All right. So aggression interventions. The process of confronting, disarming, and aggression. And here's some things I want you to think about, because I get asked questions all the time. Folks will say, you know, a student said something in my classroom, and I didn't know what to do about it. They called I heard a racial slur in my class, and I was in the middle of teaching a lesson, and someone just said something racist, and I didn't know how to address it. So all I just said was stop. And I always like to tell people, I say, you know what? Saying stop is one thing, but one of the things that we forget to do sometimes, we forget to tell them why. Right? It's one thing to say, you know what? Don't touch the stove. It's hot. Right? We tell them why, right? It's hot. But if we just say, don't touch the stove, a lot of people will say, what would happen? What would happen if I touch that stove? So we got to give them the why. All right, so here's the why. All right, let me take a sip of water. Hold on one second. All right, we're gonna give you the subtle ways. We're gonna give you the subtle ways. All right, so first one, you gotta ask for more clarification. Okay, ask for more clarification. What does that mean? I'll give you some examples. One day this is around Christmas time, holiday season, and I was walking into a store, sporting goods, and they had one of those Make-A-Wish guys outside with the Santa Claus joints. You know, he had it on, and he had the bell ringing and all that. Right, he's doing the whole thing. I'm walking up into the store, and he says, "Where are you from?" I said, "I live here in Idaho." And he said, "Well, you don't look like you're from Idaho." And I said, "Well, what does an Idahoan look like? Should I have a sack of potatoes on my back? What makes me look like I'm from Idaho? What would I need?" And he started to say, "Well, you just," I said, "What do I need in order to look like I'm from Idaho?" And then I realized, I said, you know what, this guy is, he's out here trying to get donations. Maybe I should leave him alone. Lighter, paler skin, right? Or another time, basically what I would like to ask people is just, what made you ask that question? What made you say that? I was given a college tour, and for some reason, even though I'm 38 years old, for some reason, people think I'm a football player because I live in a college town. And don't let me have on like athletic gear. Then I'm really being asked, "Hey, what position do you play for the team?" You know what I always say? What made you think that I'm an athlete? That I'm here for an athletic scholarship? Why couldn't I have been here for an academic scholarship? Why did you already just jump to, oh, surely he couldn't have been here because he's smart. He's here because he's athletically capable, and that's why he's here. I tell him, look, I got a Ph.D. I'm done with school. However, I'm just curious. What made you think that? So ask for clarification. It's step one, or option one. Subtle. That's subtle, right? Now, if you hear somebody, if you're in a staff meeting, if you watch something, whatever it is, right? You're witnessing something take place. Ask for clarification. What made you think that? How'd you come to that idea? I'm just curious. That opens up the dialogue. You're not accusing anybody of anything. You're not calling anybody out. If you're in a classroom, you hear students and they say something, what made you say that? I'm curious. Right? And then you can say you can address the conversation. Right? You hear a racial slur happen in class. A kid says something that's wrong. It's just like, what the heck? What made you say that? And then you can say, you know what? I'm offended. Because sometimes what I'll hear is people will say, well, Black people don't like it when we say that. Brown people don't like that term. Or Native Americans prefer to be, they don't like to be called Indians. They don't like that. That's offensive to them. You know what? It should be offensive to you as well. I remember I saw a teacher once tell a group of kids, Black people don't like blackface. It's an offensive thing to Black people. And I said, well, are you not offended? Blackface isn't offensive to you either? Just to Black people? Like, stand in solidarity. Stand in solidarity. So what? You may not ever experience what it's like to watch someone put black paint on their face and paint their lips red, to stereotype Negro features. You may not know what that feels like. However, I would hope that you wouldn't like it either. This is not just a Black issue. Okay. The next one is separate intent from impact. I know you didn't realize this, but when you said blank, 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 it was hurtful. It was offensive. And then here goes, and then here's the why, right? And here's why. I know you didn't mean anything by this when you said, but it's offensive. And here's why. I had a colleague that once told me, she said, my niece is a mixed race child, and she likes to grow her hair all wild. She just grows it out all wild. I said, let me stop you there. I know you didn't mean anything by this when you said your niece's hair grows wild, but it's offensive, and here's why. That's the way her hair grows. It's natural. That is the way her hair naturally grows. She doesn't have long, flowing, straight hair. It's not wild. It's how her hair naturally grows. But what happens? Society says, standards of beauty says that your hair is supposed to be a certain way. I mean, we see this in the workplace. Was it in California? They just passed a law that said you can't discriminate against locks. If you got locks in your hair and braids in your hair, they had to make a freaking law for that. It's a law. Why are we there? Where we have to make a law that says you can't discriminate against someone's hair, the way it naturally grows. So I know you didn't mean anything by it when you said, but it's offensive. And here's why. Going back to the woman in the library and that told me that I looked like Ben Carson. I guess I could have said, excuse me. I guess I could have, right? Hold up. Okay. Let me say this with a straight face because I'm supposed to be serious. Okay. I know I probably could have said, excuse me, woman. Excuse me, Miss Librarian. I know you didn't mean anything by saying that I look like Ben Carson, but it's offensive, and here's why. I could have said that, right? Maybe. I could have. Okay. I'll give you another example. I had a woman reach out to me, a professor from the university, and she said she wanted me to do some work, some leading equity stuff. She wanted me to work with the kids. So again, at the time, I was working with the reservation and working with the students out there. I was a director of special education. So start off with TRIO. So I worked on the reservation for 5 years. First couple of years, I was working through the university with TRIO, and then I transitioned as the director of special education. So as the director of special education, the professor from the university reached out and said, hey, we are writing a grant because we want to get indigenous students into our programs because we're struggling with recruiting. And so we want to get indigenous kids into our program and get them more access and understanding about different careers that are, they can make a lot of money with some of these degrees that we offer, right? So she said, I want your help because we would like for you to do a lot of the training for our staff and for the kids, again, supporting them, making sure that we're in an equitable environment. We know you do awesome training. We heard great things about the work that you do. And so we want to be able to bring you in, but we need you to, we need to get this grant first. I said, okay, that's great. I think this is awesome what you're doing. However, it's one thing to get students into the program, but what are you going to do to retain the kids? If you're bringing in 20 students, let's say you're bringing in 20 kids as your freshman class for your program, 4 of them are native. Are they going to feel welcome? So you can say, oh yeah, we're diverse. Look at our program. We got all, you could say we got a diverse program. But are the kids going to stay when they show up and they see it's just 2 or 3 of them? And there's another 17, 18 White students, how comfortable and welcome are they going to feel? What is your retention plan? She said, oh, I didn't think about that. I said, okay, that's why I'm here. Let's talk about it. So she said, you know what would be really cool? You know what would be really cool? How about, you know how they have those Native American myths? We should have the kids teach us about their Native American myths. I said, let me stop you right there. I know you didn't mean anything by this when you said Native American myths, but it's offensive. And here's why. I said, are you a Christian? She said, yes, I'm a Christian. Okay. Believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God. Have you seen God? No. I said, I'm a Christian as well, but let's keep it real. We can't prove a lot of stuff. It's faith-based. So why is it what they believe, those are myths, but what we believe is truth? How many denominations they got in Christianity? Right? Got like 1 million different denominations just in Christianity. Who are we to tell someone that what they believe is a myth and what we believe is truth? I said, I said, you are going about this the wrong way. If you're going to tell me we want to bring in indigenous kids, we want them to teach us about their myths. And that's where I'm like, are you ready? Do you really know what you're doing? Or again, stats. Let's go over to the rest, get a letter of support. Get our 4 or 5 kids in. Okay, they're here. And that's it. We're saying that we're going to create an equitable system. We got to make sure individual needs are being met. This is not a padding our stats so that we can get this 6-figure grant. No, this is what we're doing because we genuinely care about every student, not for our resumes, not for our CV, so we can say we've brought in millions of dollars of grants, but we're not willing to work on the individual needs of the groups that we are serving. I can't be a part of that. Fortunately, this woman was very open to having these conversations, and she realized, you know what? I got a lot of work to do. I've lived in this bubble. I need support. Can you help us? I said, this is what I do. The last one, again, I don't know. I feel like these are subtle. These are subtle, right? Put that in the chat. I'm being subtle, right? Here's the thing I tell people, because people tell me, oh, well, you know, especially in the Midwest, right? Folks will say, you know, we have this Midwest niceness, right? We're supposed to be nice. It's Midwest. I say, man, racism isn't nice. People weren't being nice when they're being bigots. I guess bigots is supposed to be nice. I guess. I don't know. I don't think so. If I'm harmed, if I'm being treated a certain way, if I'm taking something a certain way, it's usually, I'm not assuming that someone's being nice about it. So we, you know how they'll say turn the other cheek kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there. Let me move on. All right. Share your own process. This is where you can be vulnerable. Like I've already shared a few stories. I've told you personally how I've made some mistakes, how I've missed some opportunities. Okay. I'm gonna share something with you. And this might be your go-to. This might be a way that you can address an aggression, to take it on, again, in a subtle way, but being vulnerable. Okay. Share your truth first. I'll give you a story. When I was a school principal, same school. I was in the lunchroom and I was serving beans because it was Mexican Day. So we had Mexican food out there, and I was doing my part as a principal. out there divvying out the beans to the kids. And I had a Mexican kid come up to me in the line. I said, hey, man, you ready for these beans? The kid said, oh, no, Dr. Eakins, I don't like beans. You know what I said to him? I said, what? You don't like beans? The young man looked at me dead in my eyes and he said, we don't all eat beans, Dr. Eakins. That's a stereotype. and it caught me off guard. I was like, dude, I said, man, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I said, man, I stereotyped the heck out of you, man. That's my bad. That's my bad. So he started laughing, and I'm saying, I like to joke around with the kids. And so he's laughing. He's like, I'm not gonna lie. When I eat and go to different things, there's usually beans, but I've never liked beans. I never liked beans. And I said, man, you're right. So I can share a story like that with my colleague, with my supervisor, with another parent, someone close to me, whoever. I could share that story, my own vulnerability. Listen, I made a mistake. I stereotyped a child. I thought just because he was Mexican that he liked beans. And he called me out on it. You know what? I took it. I said, you know what? You're right. When I saw you do this, or when I heard you say such and such the other day, it reminded me of that time when I did that. Can we talk about it? So you open up the conversation, and you can word it however you need to word it, right? But you can open up that conversation by starting with your own truth first. Listen, when I was a teacher 10 years ago, or last week, I walked into a room and I did this. And so when I was talking to you earlier and you said something, it just reminded me of that story. Share your own process, share your truth first, and then engage in that conversation. See how it goes. See how it goes. You're not accusing them. And you're starting a conversation with your own vulnerability. So here's a question I have for you. And technically I gave you three, I gave you a bonus one. Okay. So I gave you three official examples of how to address an aggression, how to intervene. Okay. I gave you three examples, but there might be, and plus the bonus one, right? Here's a question I want you to ask yourself. Which one of the previous strategies to confront, disarm aggressions would I use the most? Okay. And I guess it depends, right? Because I told you when I was in the library, I probably could have walked over to that woman in the library and I said, you know what? When you said that I looked like Ben Carson, it reminds me of a story. I don't have one, but I could probably, make one up or something. I guess I could have done that. But I like the way I went. I like the bonus approach. That's kind of where I'm at these days. Okay. Some of you are saying ask for clarification. Yeah. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Tell me more. Tell me more. I like to do that. Tell me more. Oh, okay. That's where you're going. Okay. Tell me more about that. Just trying to figure out how you got there. Okay. How did we get there? All right. But I guess it just depends on, again, your level of confidence. Now, I used to say your level of comfort, but I like that. I like you being uncomfortable, especially with these kind of conversations. These conversations are not easy. When we're talking about race, like I do training with groups, especially like I like training higher ed folks too, because like when I'm talking to them, I say, if you're uncomfortable, that's a good thing. I want you to sit in that. Sit in that, because that means you're thinking. That means, you know what? Something's different than what I'm used to. What is this feeling that I'm getting? And I say that's a good thing that you're feeling uncomfortable. So the question I have rather is, your level of confidence in addressing these things. Are we going to be bystanders? Are we going to not say anything? Are we just going to let it happen? And because our level of confidence isn't there. I just gave you 4 strategies. And you know what? Even still, let's just say, because these things will catch you off guard. You're just not ready for them. So let's just say, you don't address it then, but at least follow up. That's all I say. Come back the next day. Take some time to think about it, reflect. Come back a little bit later on in the day. Cool off. Come back and address it one-on-one. Sometimes people say, it was a group of people. I didn't want to call them out. It just wasn't the right moment. Talk to them one-on-one later on. But address it. Don't just let it go by. If you're saying, I'm assuming that everyone in this audience right now is saying, you know what, we are striving towards an equitable learning space. We're going to make sure our students' individual needs are met. We'll make sure my staff's needs are being met, mental health, everything. I'm supportive. This is the work that I am dedicated to doing. And we can't be afraid to challenge and disrupt inequity taking place at school and in the community. At the end of the day, you have the power to change lives. I'll say that again. At the end of the day, you have the power to change lives. Let that sink in. People will tell me, well, we just have we have our chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. They work down the hall. We make sure they have all the resources and all those things. You know what I say to them? Are you their supervisor? Yeah, I hired them. So then you know that you are actually the chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. If you are their supervisor, if they report to you, you had the hiring authority for this individual, right? You just told me you hired them. You have some sort of say, I would imagine, with their allocation of funds as far as how much they're getting paid, how much is in there, how much money they have to operate on. If they are given staff and their level of authority. Sometimes I have some really good friends that are diversity, equity, inclusion officers. They have those positions in their schools, or they have it in their districts or in higher ed. They have these positions. And I say, do you have any hiring and firing authority, or are you in a position where you basically have to highly encourage people to do stuff? Because I remember those days. I was a director of special education. I couldn't fire a teacher if they didn't follow an IEP. I had to highly encourage the staff to follow the IEP. And I was constantly fighting to make sure that my kids' modifications, their adjustments, whatever was needed on their IEP plan was being met. I had to, but I couldn't fire anybody, but I had to get the support from who? The principal. Principal is the chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. Your dean, your department heads, VPs, president. So even though there might be a position, there's still someone above that. And when we think about where does that go? Like as far as what level of support am I providing this individual who has this position? What level of support are they given? Have I set them up with the opportunities for success? Or have I just put them in this role because it was required? And so now anything that has to deal with, race, yeah, go talk to such and such. Something to think about, because you have the power to change lives. That's all I have for today. I appreciate you hanging out with me. Feel free, by the way, connect online. There's my social information. I do a lot of training with higher education groups. I'm working with Cal State right now. And I have a few other organizations that I work with. So feel free to shoot me an email if you would like some work done individually with your department or your area, your organization. I would be happy to chat with you to learn if there's anything that the Leading Equity Center can do for you. If you're looking for some free resources and you're a podcast listener, I encourage you to check out the Leading Equity podcast. But yeah, that's all I got. I appreciate your time. I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been there locally, but I'm here with you virtually. So, you know, it's great, but feel free to reach out. I forgot who was supposed to come on next. So whoever's supposed to come on next, thank you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eakins. And if we were in the ballroom right now, I know that everybody would be on their feet clapping for you. So I invite all of you out there in virtual land in Illinois to leap to your feet and literally applaud. We thank you for starting off our Forum for Excellence, for giving us so many thoughts to consider and actual words to use, which are very powerful. So thank you very, very much for that. And I'm going to pause just a second before I move on, because I want to make sure that you get your applause.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and the applause is going in the chat. I can't even read it because it's going so fast, of all the people that are clapping and, you know, and all of their thanks to you. So thank you very, very much. It's a great start to our Forum for Excellence and gives us so much to build upon. So thank you for that. All right, so as you continue to applaud, I have a little bit of housekeeping. I hate to follow Dr. Eakins, but yeah, that's my job, so I will do it. And here's the housekeeping. And this is, you guys, this is some important information. So hang with me for a second. Hopefully you'll enjoy all of the sessions that are coming up in the Forum for Excellence. They can all be accessed in the Whova app or on the website, and you can join each of those sessions 10 minutes prior to the start time. Great news for you. Every single session, including this one, is being recorded. So you literally can go to every single session of this conference, which is a beautiful thing. Give us a little bit of time to get those recordings up, a week or two. Give us a little bit of grace to do that. We also want to encourage you to visit and support our conference vendors. They can be accessed on the Whova app in the Exhibitors tab, And many of them have promotions and specials for our Forum for Excellence attendees. So we appreciate their continued support and we ask you to go and check them out. And there's many ways for you to interact and network. We want to try to make this conference as engaging as possible. And we know that networking is important. You probably want to get together with other people and have conversations about the information that you've just heard this morning and all of the thoughts that you have surrounding that. So we want to encourage that. To find people with common backgrounds and interests, click the recommended tab, or just pick somebody out there and start a conversation. Just somebody you're passing in the hallway, except it's on the Whova app. If you haven't already, please introduce yourself and complete an icebreaker. I really encourage you to take a few minutes and go and read all the people that have introduced themselves. It's a great way to network and interact. For help with any of these items, click the resources section and then choose Whova app attendee guide. So resources, Whova app attendee guide. That helps you. And then lastly, please like and share our posts on social media. You can put shout outs to Dr. Eakins for the great message that he had this morning. Our hashtags are Forum for Excellence, the number 4, and Excellence for Equity. Oh, it's the number 4 again. So as always, to all of you there, thanks for your efforts and support to all of our learners in Illinois. We appreciate all that you're doing, and we appreciate you attending the Forum for Excellence with this year. And that's what we have. The next session will start at 11 o'clock. So you have a little bit of break, but we'll see you in your concurrent session at 11. Thank you, everybody.